welcome. Welcome to Lunch Therapy. This is Joel Marshall. I'm the host of Joel Marshall's Lunch Therapy here, coming to you from Los Angeles. Today we got a great guest. We got Andras Jones on the show. Been wanting to get him on for a while, so it's super excited to have him on. He's down here in Los Angeles. We are both from the Pacific Northwest. He's from Olympia, Washington. I'm from Edmonds, Washington, so that should be super fun. And I want to make a couple announcements first. Oh my God, what the? Boney, what are you doing in there? What are you doing in the bird bath? Could you scratch my back a little bit? Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. Thank you. Now get back down there. I don't know what Boney's doing. That's my assistant Boney. He's working on the plumbing or something. I don't know. Maybe that's a euphemism. Anyway, I'm in the backyard of my parents' house here in Edmonds, Washington, taking a bath in their bird bath. And I'm doing that from Los Angeles. So that's the unique quality of having an internet show. My guest today has many podcasts, a couple of really good podcasts, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I want to do some shameless promotion. I'm going to be in a comedy show this evening in Hollywood at the Pack Theater, and hopefully it will be packed. And towards that end, go over to my website, joelmarshall.com, if you haven't yet. Click on that. Jeez, it's difficult. That over there, that flyer, click on that, buy some tickets. It's only $20. $20, no drink minimum. Come on by. What the hell are you doing with your July 5th anyway? Get on over there. Let's get into the show. This is called Lunch Therapy. I'm gonna get myself a modem. 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 All right, we're in studio today. This is super great. Let's see who's here. Equal means equal is here. It says Andras, he's awesome. He is awesome. Happy Commando Freude, says Jose Salas. Inel says hoy. Inel is also a Seattleite person. Let's get into some breathing before we do the show. We always take 3 deep breaths. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Behind me I have the Healing Vibrations. They're out of Linwood, Washington. This is a very Pacific Northwest show today. In through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. Let it go. Calming down already. One more, in through the nose, out through the toes. Hold it. And let it go. If you want more of the sound bath experience, head on over to Healing Vibrations on YouTube, or they also have Chakra Vibrations. 24/7, as much healing as you possibly can handle. Thank you to all our Patreons. These are our Patreons. Help to keep the show going. Really appreciate them. You can head on over to patreon.com/JoelMarshall and become a Patreon. You can do it for free. You can do it for $5. You can do it for $10,000 a month if you want. Whatever you want. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Now let's get on to the interview with Andras Jones, singer-songwriter, actor, podcaster. Let's go. Andras Jones, I met briefly backstage at the Troubadour in 2000. Kamala and Patricia Arquette and I were over there for an event. Andras got on the stage and sang some funny political songs. And I just remember thinking how poised and professional he was, but also how personal and humorous he was. I later found out that he was from Olympia, Washington. He just kind of stuck in my head. And all these years later, I reached out to him to be on this show, and we finally gotten together here. He's an actor and a songwriter and a singer, a performer, and he's appeared in multiple movies and TV shows, including Saved by the Bell, and most famously, A Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Master. He toured with his band, Mr. Jones and the Previous, all over the place. So he was a successful actor and a successful singer-songwriter at the same time. And during this time, he's been doing podcasts and shows that are independently produced, most notably the Radio8Ball Show, which has attracted guests like Patricia Arquette, John C. Reilly, Tig Notaro, Weird Al Yankovich, Viggo Mortensen, and thousands of others. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Andras Jones.
You out with some fun with Andras Jones, baby!
I've been playing music my whole life, but back in the late 80s and the early 90s, first of all, if you were a musician, you didn't want anyone to know you were an actor, because it just was, everyone thought it was cheesy. And I always kind of figured that the people who liked the movies that I was in didn't like the kind of music I make. You know, I'm not a heavy metal guy. I don't have cool tattoos and piercings and all that stuff. I'm just a guy with a guitar singing songs about things that, you know, make him sad or angry or frustrated or horny, you know, just the normal things. But I'm hoping this is a new chapter and we can break down some of those walls, and I can invite some of my nightmare folks into my dream, and I guess they can invite me into their nightmare. Tell me, what is it tonight? Won't you tell me what the hell is wrong? Do you want to eat? Do you want to sleep? Do you want to drown? Just settle down, settle down, settle down, settle down. I'll give you candy, give you diamonds, give you pills, I'll give you anything you want. $100 bills. I'll even let you watch the show you wanna see if you'll just marry me, marry me, marry me, marry me.
There he is. Andras Jones. Welcome to Lunch Therapy.
Oh man, I feel like I just ziplined in here and then showed up on stage behind this mic. Your graphics are amazing, Joel.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the show, the big show. I want to jump right in and ask you the question that you've been wanting to be asked for so many years. And I don't know if anybody's asked you this, but what is it like to be the child of a noted author and academic on the subject of dreams who finds himself cast in the most famous dream-themed film franchise of all time?
It's probably one of the great synchronicities of my life.
Yeah.
One that I didn't necessarily put together at the time when I got cast in Nightmare, but because I probably didn't realize how important Nightmare on Elm Street was going to be in my life. I didn't know it was going to be. I really had no idea that was going to be sort of a life-defining experience, at least as far as how other people see me. And also when you're a kid, you know, your parents and their experience is all you know. You don't get a sense of how unique it is until you get out into the world and meet more and more people and realize that when you say my dad was a dream psychologist, they're all like, what? What do you mean? That's wild. That's amazing. I've never heard,
Yeah.
So yeah, it's my life is full of synchronicities, and that's just one of them. And that's sort of what's behind Radio 8 Ball. Well, it's definitely what's behind Radio 8 Ball, the musical divination show that I've been doing since 1998, and recently put out what I'm very proud of, a full-length show we filmed at the International Association for the Study of Dreams conference in Ashland, Oregon last summer, with Bart Davenport as a musical guest. The way Radio 8 Ball works, for people that don't know, is we answer questions by picking songs at random and interpreting those randomly chosen songs as the answers to the question. So guests, whether they're celebrities like you mentioned, or just normal folks, will ask questions like you'd ask an oracle, like, should I move? Am I on the right path? Will I find love? Those kind of things. And then we pick songs at random. On stage, we do that by spinning a wheel or picking cards. In the early days of the show, we did it with CDs on shuffle function, and then interpret those randomly chosen songs as if they were like musical tarot cards. And it seems pretty simple and maybe even a little bit goofy, but after doing the show for over 20 years, I just know how deeply profound an experience it is, and how playing with synchronicity games like that actually heightens your own experience of synchronicities. You end up having more of them, and having I think a deeper relationship to them.
So do you think that the world is speaking to us and a lot of times we're not listening?
I wouldn't give the world that kind of agency. I feel like we as humans, our consciousness is a projector reflector. And so it's like, is the mirror trying to tell you something when you look at it, or does the mirror reflect you and you can choose to see what's actually there, or deny it, or try and make it something that it isn't? So I think the experience is like that the universe is always trying to tell us where we're at on a deeper level than we may be ready to experience, because we're distracted by all of the ephemera of life. But I think that is mostly a personal experience, that is the nature of our consciousness, to look into the world and see ourselves reflected in that. And I think a lot of us get confused, and most people have a really good experience with Radio 8 Ball, but there's always some small percentage of people who have difficulty, because when they see their reflection, they don't see it as their reflection. They see it as an attack, or they see it as an insult, or making fun of them in some way, or a challenge to their sense of self. And I think that a lot of people are doing that in real life without Radio 8 Ball. We encounter something and we project our shadow onto it and treat it as if it's the enemy, as opposed to seeing it as a reflection of something that's there in ourselves that we could own and take responsibility for. And if we want to, people like to talk about holding people accountable, but I feel like the only person you can really hold accountable is yourself.
You spoke of a shadow. What do you mean by shadow?
Very simply, the part of ourselves that is undistinguished, that we either actively deny or are passively unaware of. And I mean, we all have it, I think, and I think there's a big difference between being passively unaware of something about yourself, which, if you're passively unaware, I think you're more likely to be open to learning about that if some aspect of that confronts you in your life. Whereas if you're actively in denial, and for honest reasons, I think a lot of people are traumatized by very difficult things, especially early in life, and that can lead to a very strong impulse to not look at aspects of one's own life. And those things remain in shadow. And personally, I think that since we're here doing lunch therapy, I think one of the goals of life is to explore and cast light upon one's own shadow, and to gain a deeper awareness of self, which allows you to move more freely and consciously in the world of other people who may not have done that work yet, of distinguishing their shadows. And the more you can recognize, oh, what's happening over there with that person is happening over there with that person. If I recognize it, it has something to do with me first. Before I go and correct them, let me look inside and, oh, that person's being so ... Well, why is it bugging me?
Yeah.
Is there some aspect of me that I'm denying? Like I'm saying, how dare they? That's one of those, I don't know who pointed it out to me, but once, if your response to something is, how dare they ... It's probably because it's something on some level you wish you could do, but you don't feel like good people do that. Somewhere in your life, someone gave you a lesson of like, better to be seen and not heard. So someone who speaks up, you're like, oh, who do they think they are? Just talking freely about what they really think and in front of people? How dare they? Well, maybe that comes from something in you that you feel like you wish you could do that.
You're not allowed to somehow. So if I'm not going to be allowed to, you're not going to be allowed to. Yeah. It seems like there's a lot of that anger that comes up from that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's honest. You can't hold them accountable for it if you're not holding yourself accountable for it first. I mean, you certainly can. There's plenty of people who do. But I try and, to the best of my ability, hold myself accountable first, and then try and wade into the interpersonal dynamic.
That's cool. I want to show a snippet of the trailer for Radio 8-Ball from a while back, but it gives us kind of an idea.
Oh, this is an old one. Is
that all right?
We were doing this. Yeah. This is an old. I haven't seen this in a long time.
It's kind of fun.
Andras Jones says he believes in synchronicity.
The Radio 8-Ball Show is the show where we answer questions by picking songs at random and interpreting those songs as the answers to the questions, like picking musical tarot cards.
At a Radio 8-Ball Show, the audience, they provide the questions.
How gay am I?
Will I be having wonderful sex this evening?
Will I find the next key to myself?
Is being open the way, or am I just pissing people off?
Am I with my true love?
Did I really do that thing on Saturday? What was that?
You can come.
A big piece of it, obviously, is the musicians.
In the night. Proposition.
When a line hits and it exactly answers their question, there's a chill. There's something about being able to connect and draw that line in culture that we all share. And the Pop Oracle is using pop culture, particularly music, to access it.
That's so much fun.
Man, I love Andrea Witkins. Did you know her music?
No, but I want to know more. She's great. What is her name again?
Andrea Witkins. I'm going to be playing a show with her in New York City. She's moved to New York City. I'm going to be playing with her at a venue called the Fever Dream Lounge in New York City on August 6th. So if you have any listeners in NYC, come on out to that. She's fantastic. We'll also be performing with Dino Stamatopoulos, who's really an interesting, funny guy and a great songwriter.
Do you get a chance, or do you? Is your website updated with all your dates like that whenever you're going different places?
Yeah, pretty much. Actually, I need to do another pass at that. I haven't added a few of the summer shows, so I got to get that on there.
Yeah, so that's great. That website
you can
is
find
called Previously Yours. Is that right?
Yes.
Cool.
Previouslyyours.com.
Maybe Boney could put that up there on the screen. Boney, could you? He's like asleep over there.
It's
terrible.
Previously Yours.
Oh yeah, previously.com. No, Boney, it's Previously Yours. Yours.
And you could also, if you type in others.his.com, that'll get you there. But my band was called The Previous, and it was Mr. Jones The Previous, and then The Previous. And back in those days, I used to sign everything that I wrote, Previously Yours. And then the band ended, and now I sign everything Presently Yours.
Oh, nice. Why Previous? Why did you call the band The Previous?
Well, one, because I thought it sounded cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something, well, making records, making art, making music, everything that you do that's current is previous. The second becomes previous very quickly.
That's true.
So there's this idea. I mean, it's sort of a time travel idea on some level, that music and capturing art in a physical medium is a kind of time travel. And also, that was at a time I'd been in a band called The Boon with my good friend Josh Claytonfeld, who went on to form the band School of Fish. And it was my first band breakup, and we were like a songwriting partnership. And so I had this idea. I wanted to put together a band where nobody could leave it and make it so that the band could no longer exist. So there was this idea that everyone in the band was eventually going to leave, and that this was a band made up of people who were free to come and go, but the entity would remain. So it's Mr. Jones and the people who are going to be leaving soon. So catch them while you can.
It's interesting because what you say about Previous too is the only kind of art form that is in the moment is live music, live performing. Everything else is previous.
Yes. And I would also say that, like, yes, the performance is live, but then the people who were there, if it was good, then they walk away and it was something previous for them. I remember when we saw so-and-so at the ...
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of the live experience for the audience. Is if it's good, you're going to remember this.
Yeah. And it's also kind of yours because it's maybe not available to everyone, especially if it's not recorded. Yeah. What was it like for you when you first came to Los Angeles from Olympia? I mean, I imagine it was very different.
Well, actually, I had moved from Olympia to Massachusetts. My folks got divorced, and my mom moved back to the East Coast. So I spent my high school years in Massachusetts.
Oh wow!
So I moved from Massachusetts to Los Angeles right out of high school.
Didn't your grandfather or something, like your grandfather was like a scientist at MIT?
Yeah, he was the
electrical engineer.
Yeah, he was an electrical engineer and one of the head of the engineering department at MIT. Where my mom also worked when that's where she moved. We moved to the East Coast so she could take a job at MIT in the fledgling computer department. Actually, in 1982 at MIT, I was on a very, very early version of the internet. And I like to tell this story. It's very funny. I was on the internet for about 3 minutes before I was fighting with someone.
We did the same thing. We had a Commodore VIC-20 or 64 or whatever, and we got on this modem and we were able to talk to the university. And we were, of course, kids. So we were like swearing and saying all this stuff. And some person said, swearing is a weak mind trying to express itself. And then we were like, do you want to fight? Like, we're just stupid. But we ended up actually going down to the last exit in Seattle to get in a fight with this guy. Like, we had a friend who had a car, drove us down there, and there was literally a guy out in front of the last exit with glasses on with tape in the middle. This is the way I remember it. Pocket protector, ready to take us on. And we were scared. We drove home. But why did you get in a fight?
I was just really into the Who, and I got into the Who forum.
Yeah,
and,
the Who forum.
I said something like, I had some opinion, like, my favorite Who record is Who's Next. Someone was like, oh, that's bullshit. It's not as good as Tommy. I'm like, what are you, crazy? Like, oh, yeah. No fights. There was no threat of physical violence, but it just the medium is the message, right? I find it, I don't know if that's, I guess I've always thought that was maybe a failing of my part. That was a combination of my nature and its nature, just giving me a taste of what the next 40 years were going to be like.
Really? Yeah, totally.
But now that you're telling me that that's the experience you had, maybe that is more the medium than the person.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't getting in fights other than that. We were not we were not saying we want to fight. Like maybe it was the mask of being behind this mask, and also just the idea. It was also so magical. It's like you almost didn't believe you were actually talking to someone.
Yeah.
It seemed impossible. You know? So, yeah. And then I think driving down there, really, we just wanted to see if there was an actual person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, as far as moving out to LA, it was a crazy, magical, synchronistic experience that it took me a while to realize that my experience of moving out to LA was unique and very lucky and very special.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know anyone out here. I had one friend. Well, actually, I had one friend and I had a phone number. I had a friend who had planned to move out to LA with, my friend Wayne. And we had planned to move out in June, but I decided to stay for the summer and work in Harvard Square and make some money before coming out. And so he went out ahead and he made some friends and he got an apartment with these 2 other guys. And he said I could come and stay there. By the time I got there, I was the 5th person in a 1-bedroom apartment in Venice. Wow. And the guy who had the lease, basically after 2 days of us being there, was like, okay, you got to leave.
Yeah.
And in my high school, I had interviewed a screenwriter, a guy named Jonathan Roberts, who wrote the movie The Sure Thing.
Yeah.
And he had been a graduate of my high school, so I had interviewed him for the school paper. And, you know, we ended up talking for hours. And I guess he was impressed with me, and he gave me his card. He said, if you ever come out to LA and you need a place to crash, give me a call. Probably not thinking I would ever take him up on that. And then as we got kicked out, I went out to a phone booth and called him and said, hey, this is Andras. I interviewed you. Do you remember? He was like, yeah, I remember you. Like, well, you said if I ever need a place to crash, I should call you. And I actually do. And he's like, actually, that's great. I'm going out of town for a week. I need someone to house sit.
Oh my God. Synchronicity.
Come on over.
Talk about synchronicity.
And I came over and he was like, this is, it's a pretty good thing to stay here. The last person who crashed at my place, in the same bed you're going to be sleeping in, she has a big movie that's coming out this year. It's called The Princess Bride.
Oh, no way.
That was Robin Wright.
Robin Wright.
So I ended up living there for like 6 months. He couldn't let me stay there basically for free. And by the end, he had to kick me out because I was I was a kid. I had no clue of what it was like to be a roommate, what was expected. I never offered him any money. I just was like a entitled kid who'd always been. I lived with parents, or like adults always took care of you.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they did. But while I was there, I got to be friends. He was a writer on the Fast Times TV show.
Oh, there was a TV show?
Really? Yeah. Patrick Dempsey was in it, and Courtney Thorne-Smith was in it.
Wow.
And Dean Cameron was in it. And an actor named Wally Ward, who now is known as Wallace Langham. If you saw him, you'd recognize him. He had a really nice role in the recent Perry Mason series.
Oh, that's
great. He was on the Larry Sanders Show. He has developed a career as a really fantastic character actor. But at the time, he was a young guy, and we went to. I was invited to his wedding, and in the food line at his wedding, I met his manager. There he is.
There he is.
And I have such good feelings about that guy. Just seeing his picture,
Cool.
always. Whenever I see him show up in something, I just get a really warm feeling.
That's cool.
But his manager, a woman named Roz Tillman, was in line, and she was like, my chutzpah. I was like, what do you do? I asked her. We just talked. She's like, oh, I'm Wally's manager. I was like, oh, you want to be my manager? I was like, really? Yeah, well, and she's looking at me and I'm like 18. I know how to, I have myself pretty together. She's like, yeah, maybe come over for a meeting.
Yeah.
And basically she realized I was out there with no parents. I could play 15 or 16, but I was old enough to work as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some theater training from my high school, and she started sending me out on auditions, and I immediately started getting callbacks.
Wow.
And I had a real nice run of like a couple years of being being on the road to being a pretty successful young actor. And then at some point the music came to the fore a bit more and started challenging my availability for some roles. And that was a time when people really insisted that you had to pick a lane, like be an actor or be a musician.
Definitely, yeah.
And I made the choice to go more in the musical direction in a way that alienated some of the people who were, representing me, and probably not the smartest choice. I mean, if I would go back in time, I'd be like, you can always make music. The reason that music is so amazing is no one can stop you from doing it. But with acting, if people are inviting you to do it, you should keep saying yes.
Well, you also don't realize the value of being that young, and
yeah.
You just don't realize it, and you don't even realize you're going to get older.
Yeah,
what I mean?
And you just sort of feel like, oh well, this is all coming my way. It's going to always keep coming my way.
Yeah. Everybody has. I mean, a lot of people in Hollywood have that experience, and that's what it's like to be youthful too. Is sometimes it's really benefit to the fact that you don't have fears like that. You don't have things that are bouncing around in your head saying, you better hurry up. I remember somebody saying that to me in Hollywood, though, an older actor, Ben Hammer was his name. He was in a lot of great plays and a lot of great movies and stuff. But I remember him saying to me when I was in my 20s, going, you better hurry up. And I remember going, what's that guy talking about? And he was kind of right. But then the idea is like, how do you hurry up? How do you hurry up in that business? All right. So you made the choice. So the thing is, you're saying back then it was really difficult to be like a multi-hyphenate. Now it's like totally different. It seems like there's lots of people that do music and lots of people that act.
Everyone does everything.
Time. Everybody does everything, and you have to.
I don't know anyone who just does one thing anymore.
Yeah. And it used to be like it used to be something that worked in your favor if you were like, because you hear that a lot with actors that kind of made it at that time. They're kind of like, I don't know how to do anything else. They wear it like a badge. They're like, I became an actor because I don't know how to do anything else. And nowadays it's like you have to edit your own stuff. You have to do. So do you think that this experience, though, of then going on the road and being a musician and all this made you much more self-sustainable? Like as far as just relying on yourself and your own skills and your ability to develop skills?
Maybe, there's something about being very self-sufficient that can also lead to being more isolated.
Mm-hmm.
I've found that some of my friends who are better at asking for help or needing help or telegraphing that they could use help end up getting more help.
It's true.
And
it's so true.
If you enter situations feeling competent and like, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. And, like, I don't need someone to help me figure out, like, come up and be like, hey, you're pretty good. You should make a record. Like, no, I'm already making a record. I love your help, but I'm already doing this. So I feel like it is, in a weird way, it's at cross purposes with the way the world works. It's in a way that is counterintuitive. Like, it would seem like people would want to work with the most self-sufficient, like people who can get everything done and don't need a lot of help. That's a good person to invest in.
Yeah.
But it seems more like the people who get the most invested in them are the people who for whom somebody else, we're going back to what we said, can project themselves onto and be like, you have a talent that I don't have, but I want to be in charge of it. Let me be, let me make all the decisions and you just be the talented one.
That makes a lot of sense, because sometimes people that are self-sustaining like that, there's maybe people think I'm not going to be able to mold them or have them do things that I want them to do. And that makes a lot of sense. I think about that sometimes with the way my career has gone and what I've done. And I've always been doing things on my own. And, and I wonder, like, I actually do try and allow myself to ask for help, but it's a difficult battle. And so at some point I realized, a lot of the things that have happened in my life where I'm like, maybe I wanted it to go a different way. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't want someone to tell me what to do. And that's why I didn't, or maybe I wasn't like always willing to listen. Oh, you need to do this. And I was like, I don't really want to do that. And that's sort of, you make your own life that way because of what you really want, And
I guess the question then is like, as an artist, are you an artist, and this is not to you, this is just is one an artist because they have something very strong that they want to say? And in which case they should pretty much do it on their own, because it's going to be hard to compromise with other people who might be like, oh, well, yeah, do that, but do it a little bit more like this or a little bit more like that. It's like, no, I know what I want to do. I'm just going to do it. Which can read as arrogance. And a lot of times, people who have that attitude about themselves, I would say actually probably a very large percentage of the time, a young artist who has that attitude is probably very arrogant and likely wrong and would probably benefit from listening to someone else. But I think that impulse of like, I have a very strong thing that I want to say is what drives someone to keep doing this for a very long time and makes them a potentially better investment than someone who needs to be formed. But the other motivation would be someone who wants to be popular, who wants to, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and who wants to be with people, who wants to work with people, who doesn't really have a strong sense of, I really have something strong I want to say, but I really like doing this, and I could do it this way, or I could do it, as long as I'm on stage singing, I'm happy. As long as I'm, whatever you say, put me in whatever role, and I'll just play it. And those kind of people are actually probably more fun to be around, easier to work with, less of a hassle personally. And I can see why even though I don't think it leads to the best art or the best work out there, that it can probably lead to a better life. A lot of the people who I know have gotten successful in this industry, whether it's music or film, are people who are kind of easier, just
maybe lately I've been saying the phrase "go with the flow." Some people actually go with the flow, and other people go, "No, I want to do this. I don't care what the flow is," and that can get you in some trouble, I guess.
Well, you talked about my podcast, Radio8Ball. My other podcast. So Radio8Ball is very much about everything in the world is right.
Yeah.
Everything is synchronicity, and you just have to tune into it.
Yeah.
You can't argue with it. It is the flow is the right flow. My other podcast, which is a very positive podcast about films that people have negative attitudes about and champion those films, is called The World Is Wrong.
I love that name.
And I very much feel like if you go with the flow in a world that's wrong, you may be more popular with people who are also wrong. And if you're okay with that, then I think there might be something very enlightened about not getting hung up on the wrongness of the world and being connected to the rightness of the moment. And I toggle between the two. I have a strong belief in that what's happening right now is exactly what's supposed to be happening, and the more we can open up to it, the more we can glean from this moment, from this interaction, that could be incredibly valuable for the rest of our lives. And I also look around the world and I see that the world is incredibly wrong, and on so many levels. and enthusiastically wrong.
Oh yeah.
And I think that part of me, that the reason I write songs is because when everyone around me seems just totally wrong, I can go into a room and craft a way to, like, craft a little bubble in which I can live and either comment on that or have a relationship to the wrongness of, just people's prejudices about me or about anything else, and address it in a way that you really can't in the real world. Sort of like that scene from Annie Hall, where Woody Allen brings in Marshall McLuhan, because someone's talking about Marshall
right,
McLuhan,
and the guy's
and
talking
like,
about the movie. We were just talking about this on Tuesday's show, where the guy's like pontificating about the movie, and finally he's like, "Here's the director to tell you how it really is."
Yeah, Marshall McLuhan, come in here. You know nothing of my work. It's like, wouldn't it be great if life was like this? Well, as an artist, and that's the thing, is Woody Allen knows that. As an artist, he was able to create that moment for himself that would never exist in the real world, because there are people walking around pontificating and being wrong about stuff that you actually know something about.
Yeah. And you can you have
and
to sit back and watch
so,
them be wrong sometimes.
Like, if you're making a movie, that's a very expensive proposition. But to go into your room, if you can take a guitar in there or a piano and write a song that then you can sing over and over again, and sort of they're mantras, they're spells, they're like personal spells that you can use to remind yourself, oh yeah, that the whole world may be wrong about this, but if I weren't right about this song wouldn't be so good.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have an impact on me, and it wouldn't have an impact on other people who hear it, either negative or positive. And I've had both.
That's interesting. Do you have a movie that you love that the world was wrong about? I know your podcast is about that. What is one of your top ones?
One of my favorites is Mordecai, the Johnny Depp film where he has the mustache.
Yeah. I never saw it.
So many people hated that movie and made fun of it.
Yeah.
And I watched it and I just laughed my ass off. And I was like, okay, I got to watch it again. Laugh my ass off again.
Really?
And for about a year or so, I would keep having conversations with people, and they'd be like, it's not funny. It's just not funny. I'm like, okay, well, I'll go watch it again. Well, I'm laughing. So I think it's incredibly funny. Everyone in that movie is like given some of the best performances. Ewan McGregor is given an incredible performance. Gwyneth Paltrow is really great in it. Yeah, a lot of people don't like it, but I love that movie so much. But if you go to our podcast page, the World Is Wrong podcast.com, there's about 100 movies we covered, and there are plenty. There are just people enjoy hating something. And this would be one of the areas where I think the world is wrong. I think there is no upside to hating something.
There's no upside to it.
A work of art, particularly. One of the things we say on the podcast is, if you like a film, and I would say this about almost any work of art, if you like a work of art and someone else doesn't like the work of art, the person who likes it is de facto right, because it doesn't really matter. It's all subjective. And since they are getting value out of it, there is more to learn. I'm so much more curious to know why someone likes something that I hate personally, because there's a lot of things I really don't like. I just don't see there's much value in if we could be talking about anything, why would I talk to you about a movie that I hate? Which a lot of times means that it's just it didn't work for my particular prejudices and likes and dislikes. And so, all I'm doing when I'm telling you what I hate is telling you about a deficiency in myself.
That's interesting.
I guess up to a point. There's certain places, like if we're making a movie together. Yeah. And you really love a film that I really hate, and we're about to make a movie together.
Whoops. Boney, don't quiet the audience down, Boney.
Cheers. a lot of cheers for hate.
Yeah.
You know, or we're making a record together. It doesn't make sense if you want to sound like Depeche Mode and I want to sound like Woody Guthrie.
Yeah.
Then we'll be like, well, we're going to have to make a decision, or we can find a middle ground where we're going to make a Woody Guthrie Depeche Mode record.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, when you're creating something, there is a value in exploring and talking about where you have very strong aesthetic disagreements. But just posting online, I just saw blah, 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 and it's just the worst film ever. It's like, no, you're the worst person. That's the worst opinion ever. You should, you know.
I hate that too when I see people posting like how much they hated a movie, and they're like friends of mine, and I'm like, I love that movie. Like,
what is the value? What is the value?
It separates you from them a little bit. Like, it doesn't really help that they're just bagging on it. It's one thing to go, this is a great show, you should run out and see it. But just bagging on it, I don't know what that does. You're right. It does. What purpose does it serve?
It tells you about the limitations of the person making that comment.
Yeah.
And again, from the standpoint of holding oneself accountable, I think for me, it's like when I encounter something I really hate.
Yeah.
I have to think about, like, what is it about? Is it really that it's just? It could be that it's just bad. But that doesn't mean that somebody couldn't like it. There's a lot of things that are bad that I have enjoyed throughout my life.
Absolutely.
Not all art has to be Citizen Kane or
Attack of the Killer
Sgt.
Tomatoes.
Peppers. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in plenty. My whole acting career is mostly films that were bad, but strangely, so many of the films that I've acted in that were, quote, bad have become sort of cult films. A film called Sorority Babes in the Slime Ball Bolorama. The whole time we made it, we knew we were making something that wasn't very good, and yet it has had tremendous life over time. And I meet people who got a great deal out of it, and people who've become great friends because of the connection through that. So there's a lot of value that can be gleaned from something that wasn't made with the intention that, say, I make my records with, which I really do try and make my records. Every one of the records I make, the intention is to change the world.
It's to change the world.
Yeah, well, to change my world, to change the conversation,
because it's an expression, a personal expression of what you feel at that moment.
More than that. No, it's specifically the songs that are just about how I feel probably don't make it onto my records unless
interesting.
They are capable of addressing an area where the world is wrong, and trying to reframe it or recontextualize it or express another way of relating to that. Because that's usually where I'm writing from. Usually when I write, it's because I'm so frustrated with not being able to have an intelligent conversation about a particular thing that I'm just going to go and have that conversation with my muse, or I'll have it with the world through music, and imagine that maybe the people that I'm frustrated with may listen to it, which advice to all songwriters: the people who you write your songs for will never listen or hear what you want them to hear, but other people will. That's been my experience.
Well, I listened to one of your songs. You have the new album out, but I also listened to this one called All You Get. And I thought that was a pretty personal song that also, kind of spoke to me a little bit. That, you got to be, like you said, that you did this show, Dream Master, might be the thing that you're known for. Who knows? But at the time, you don't really realize it. And you got to be sort of happy with what you do get, And I'm going to play just a little bit of that.
When your cup is full, you're gonna still find reasons to cry. And though you pull the wool over your eyes, you can't deny that this is what you get. Yeah, maybe this is all you get. Tired seen nothing yet, but maybe this is all you get. Everything you want, except the thing you want most, is gonna haunt you until you give up the ghost and realize that this is all you get. Yeah, maybe this is all you get. And you ain't seen nothing yet, my pet, but maybe this is all you get.
Anyway, that's a great little tune. I think that's a great little
Thanks.
tune, you know, and it's a very personal song too.
For a long time, I mean, until this most recent record, and in some way, I do think maybe that's one of the best songs. One of the songs that I'm most proud of writing. Musically, it did something what's funny to me about songwriting is sometimes you'll write a song that you just couldn't reverse engineer. Like, I don't know how I wrote that. Like,
Really?
I don't really remember writing it, and it feels like it doesn't sound like the kind of thing that I would write, but now it's a part of my life. And it really, it has a lot of, that song has a lot of generosity in it, which
it really does.
Some of my songs are coming from a place where I'm just sort of up against the wall. Feels like that I don't have as much generosity in where the song's coming from.
Well, that's a very honest thing to say too. This is your new album for people out there. Recognize, De-Escalate, and De-Code. Yeah.
Very proud of. Yeah.
It's a really nice album. What about this song on there that's about Andy Dick? What the heck's going on with that?
It's not about Andy Dick.
Okay, I'm going to play a clip from it. Can I play a clip?
Yeah.
No, I'll cut it off. I won't play just a little bit.
That's okay.
There's a comedian in this town who gets mad if you call him a clown, even though clown's just a synonym for his profession. So let's just call him Sam, the big comedian, with absolutely no sense of humor about the word clown. Well, he chased me down the street outside of Obsidian, shouting and threatening, man, he wasn't kidding. And if it happened to you, you believe that it was true. But since it happened to me, you probably think it didn't. Well, I did this guy the grave injustice of inviting him to do my show. It didn't go as well as he'd hoped, and he blamed me for the whole situation. In an angry after-show text that led me to mutter under my breath, oh, I made the clown cry. That's why he chased me down the street outside of Obsidian that night, shouting and threatening, man, he wasn't kidding. He was looking for a fight, saying, you called me a clown, you called me a clown, admit it, you called me a clown. That's what he shouted as he ran me down. Ain't that hilarious?
I'm cutting off for a second. That's a fantastic song. I love the video.
Thank you.
It's not about Andy Dick.
No, Andy's an old friend, and he starred in the video. But it's a totally true song about something that happened to me in Olympia, Washington, with a local comedian there who I did invite to do my show, and he had a bad time about it, and he sent me an angry after show text.
Oh no!
I looked down it and I said, "Oh, I made the clown cry." And then someone told him that I called him a clown, and he came in and was like, "You called me?" He's like this gigantic, like 6 foot something ex-con with machine guns on his arm. Was like, "You called me a clown," and chased me down the street outside of this venue called Obsidian in Olympia. And that was one of those situations where when I told people, like, this guy attacked me, like, nobody cared or believed. Like, all of these people in Olympia were like, we oppose violence and we're allies, and like, yeah, well, I just got attacked by this guy. Oh no, we like him. He's popular. He's funny. It's okay.
Oh man.
And I was so frustrated with it, and I sat on it for a long time, and then then I had another interaction with him years later where he was still just so angry at me, and I went home and wrote that song. And
I like it. I like the fact that you're a clown in it, like the way you're dancing around and stuff is very clowny. And yeah, I like that. I also like Tuesday Thomas is in it. She was on our show, so that's fun.
That's great.
Super fun. Yeah, I really like that. But so Andy Dick doesn't mind that people are going to think maybe he's the clown. Clearly, he
loves
mind.
it. No, he wants people to think that it's about him.
He's
like,
a character.
People are going to think it's about me. I'm like, well, it's okay.
That's good. We clarified. I think we have to end the show. Unfortunately, we've hit an hour.
Okay. Well, let me just quickly give a plug about Recognize, De-Escalate, Decode.
Yes, let's do it.
So this is a record I've been working on for about 15 years. Every song, like I worked on it one song at a time. Every song is about, on some level, the bullying nature of our time.
Mm-hmm.
And Recognize, De-Escalate, Decode is my prescription for our time, where we tend to project and escalate and ignore. I wish we could have more time to talk about it, because that's really the main thing that.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's take some time to talk about it.
You have to wrap this up because this is all the other stuff we talked about. I whatever. I don't care.
Okay, I want to hear
this
about
is the only thing that I really care about sharing.
Yeah.
Recognize. Let's practice with this.
Okay.
So what does it mean to recognize? Say this would be like what we call calling something out. Like there's something amiss. I'm working with someone and I feel like they're targeting me in a way. This comedian, let's say that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, hey, this was not okay. We need to do something about this. Now, the natural impulse, I think the acculturated impulse is to then pick sides like this. Do I like this person who's being called out? Do I like the person who's not being called out? Which side am I on? Who did the calling out first?
Mm-hmm.
And then are we going to escalate it and be like, okay, well, this person said that about that person, so fuck that person or whatever.
Right,
or are we going to de-escalate it and be like, okay, well, rather than picking a side, someone said something, I'm saying this comedian chased me down the street. Well, what is that? What happened? Why did it happen? What does the comedian who did the chasing have to say about this? What does the person, the Radio8Ball Show host who was chased down the street have to say about it? And is this a misunderstanding? Is it something that has to be, we have to make a decision of who's the bad person and who's the good person and who we're going to listen to and who we're not?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there some way that we can, once we've de-escalated it and we've actually listened to people who are not under threat of being punished for either calling out erroneously or being called out?
Yeah.
What actually is the complexity of this situation? And if we can work out the complexity of the situation, then we start to build society.
Yeah.
Really. And whether that is a society within your workplace, within your family, within a friend group, or in society at large. And I feel like we're doing the exact opposite.
I love what you're saying here. It's so important right now that we do this, because I don't think people know how to interact with one another anymore. And I don't know why it's become this way, possibly from the 1983 internet experience that we had, that's maybe where we've come.
Yeah, but we did this during McCarthyite times.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, I think it is a human failing that sort of our less than integrity leaders find that it's easier to turn people against each other than provide actual solutions to problems, interpersonal or global.
Well, it's set up in such a binary way too.
Yes, I find it very interesting. We are in a time where we talk a lot about being non-binary, and yet and I believe that there, everything's on a spectrum. There is no you cannot find the truth. There is almost nothing that is either or
Yeah.
all in all situations. So
Yeah.
there is no true binary. And yet, in a time where so many people are really open to the idea of things which seem pretty on off, like male female,
Mhm.
but we accept that there is a binary, there is a spectrum within that. But on matters of, that seem far less binary, like what do you think about a complex issue going on globally, that it really does come down to you're either with us or against us.
Yeah.
So we are in a very weird and cognitively dissonant time, and basically every song on this record takes on a different facet of that dynamic of, sometimes, like, there are songs, like a song on the record called Trash, about a woman who everyone called trash, but they were all wrong. The world was wrong about her.
The world was wrong.
The first song on the record's called Action, which is all about, people say I love you, but their actions do not show that. Oh, I love this person, but they do need to be held accountable for ... Again, not holding yourself accountable, not being in integrity with your own actions, or that in terms of matching your words. Or there's a song called Record Store, which is about having every avenue of communication closed to you, and the idea, well, then I'm going to make a record, and there's still a record store, so you can still potentially listen to this and find find some intelligence that is not out there in the world, in a lot of ways. And
what
I could go through
what about Olympia? The one about Olympia's Secret.
Oh, Olympia's Secret. Well, yeah, I think I think Olympia is a microcosm of the world we're in now. I grew up in Olympia, and it's always been a reactionary little town that has a where the people have a very high and righteous opinion of themselves because of opinions we hold about global issues that we really don't have a lot of impact on, but we can be incredibly cruel and closed-minded to our neighbors if there's a whiff of a scandal or an accusation or just rumors, just ugly small town rumors. And I grew up in that, and I've seen how I don't feel like Olympia necessarily exported that to the world, because I think that's probably the dynamic in a lot of places. But for me, the dynamics of cancellation and
certainly at Evergreen College, they've been known to be so liberal, but then you see things that happen there that seem so judgmental.
Incredibly. Well, yeah, it happened to me at Radio 8Ball. My show was taken off the air there because I was being harassed by a co-host who I asked not to do the show, and when I asked for help, they got rid of me.
Jeez.
Again, because she seemed more like a victim than I did, even though I was the one who was being targeted.
Yeah.
And which was very tough for me. I grew up on the Evergreen campus. It's a place I love. But so Olympia's, I guess there's a couple things. I feel like in a way I'm Olympia's secret. I didn't think that when I wrote it. Only after I put it out, people started saying, well, I think you're Olympia's secret. I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's kind of true.
Yeah.
But it's also this secret that we, the people who think they're the most righteous and good have the capacity to be the most cruel, even to the people who you would think, like in the song, the woman who is being judged by Olympia, or is afraid of being judged by Olympia if her secret comes out, is exactly the kind of person who Olympia thinks that it's on the side of, until that person becomes unpopular or challenges their shadow or their projections, and then this loving little town will turn on even their most natural allies. And I don't really know why. I think there's a difference between a secret and a mystery. There's there's the secret secrets we keep, and then there's the mystery of why we keep them and why we squander our power. And that's the main thing. Olympia is an incredibly powerful place full of magic and mystery. At the beginning of this, you showed a picture of Capitol Lake below the Olympia State Capitol.
Yeah.
And I wrote about that in my book, Accidental Initiations in the Kabbalistic Tree of Olympia. And that lake sits at the top of a massive Kabbalistic tree that was built by the Freemasons who built Olympia. And this is not just conspiracy stuff. There's a statue in front of the old state capitol with a kneeling Freemason that says this was dedicated by the Freemasons of Thurston County. And that lake is to me, is an incredibly magical and powerful, not just symbol. It's where salt and fresh waters mingle. It is where the salmon do their transformative magic trick of going from saltwater to freshwater fish.
Yeah.
It's the end of the Oregon Trail and the end of the sort of the dream and the nightmare of Western expansion. And all of this to me is the foundation for such a rich and vibrant, creative and collaborative culture. And I just watch over and over again as that's squandered by small-minded bullies and what I call the boring haters. People, and I'll wrap this up. Before we started, we talked about like being Northwesterners who moved to Los Angeles, and why would someone leave someplace so beautiful,
right,
to come to LA?
Yeah,
and there's got to be a reason, and for me, the reason is because even though the place is amazing, a lot of the people there find most of their entertainment in trashing each other rather than in creating interesting things. And usually the people they're most likely to trash are the ones who are creating the interesting thing. How dare you?
Yes.
How dare you think you can make a movie or a record or
I gotta say, that's one of the reasons I took off and went to Chicago originally, was because I felt like I needed some creative space. And it wasn't, I don't know, again, might have been my own shadow or whatever that needed that. But I just felt like there was a lot of like judgment going on, and a lot of trying to keep people like from doing something risky and wacky or whatever, I'm not sure why that was. I still don't quite understand it, but I knew I had to get out of there at that time.
Yeah, and it's it's such a beautiful, there's so much potential and possibility there. And
a lot of great artists come out of there,
Yeah. And when I say I make my records from the standpoint of trying to change the world, if I could wave a wand and have my record do one thing to change the world, it would be to wake up my fellow Olympians to the amazing potential that they're all sitting on, and how it is being squandered through, projection and cowardice and whatever else it is that drives people to eat their own,
or the feeling of being right.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will latch on to anything just to feel that they're right. And it could be the most wrong thing. But if they feel like it's right, and the word is feel too. If they feel they're right, not know, but they feel they're right, they'll just hang on to that thing. And I think that's where we run into a lot of trouble. People get latched onto the ideas like they're their favorite football team or whatever, and they will not let go. And it becomes their identity. And it's really hard to wrest them from it.
When hating something else becomes their identity. I mean, you see this a lot. Like, if you support this person, if you don't hate this person, then you're not my ally.
Yeah.
Like, I never understand that. Like, if you want me to be your ally, then you want me to help you. Glad to do that. Yeah. But if you want me to hate someone else who you don't, not even someone who's doing this, but like, if you don't hate this celebrity, this famous person, then I don't trust you. It's like, well, again, you're betraying yourself, as you're not trustworthy. If the solidarity you want, John Lennon said it, if you want money for people with minds that hate, all I can tell you is, brother, you have to wait.
Yeah.
You know, I'm happy to listen to someone's complaints for hours if they're hurt, and I'm happy to collaborate on finding a way for them to find their way to a better situation. Pretty much with anyone. I have a lot of extra time on my hands. Glad to help. But and I think I see this all around. It's what you want as a sign of solidarity is to join a mob against somebody else. No way. That's not one I'm joining.
Right when you said that, Jose said, you're describing mob mentality. It's an ancient trait in humans. It does seem to be an ancient trait. But,
well, one of the songs on my record is called Dylan and Moses. It's the single that I'm going to be coming out with this in August. So that's the one.
got some great renditions.
Moses and Dylan. Who is the hero? And who is the victim of me and Woody? Woody and me, you gotta choose Moses or Dylan. That's right, it's either Dylan or Moses. Don't fight, you can look them up all you like and make up your own prognosis about Woody and me and Woody. And then we cry out collectively, what about Soon-Yi? She's mad.
That's so interesting. So interesting.
So, to me, Woody, that song is about growing up with the kids of that relationship and realizing that they are my generation, that their trauma is my trauma. I don't think my trauma is their trauma, but I grew up watching and loving Woody Allen movies, and a lot of them starring Mia Farrow, and feeling very fondly towards both of these artists.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, I see that case as being sort of the grandfather of, or grandmother of cancellation, like sort of the worst aspects of cancellation and Me Too, which both have, I don't think cancellation has any positives, but I do believe that Me Too had the potential to have some positives. But regardless of what you think about that case, and I'm very firmly in the camp that believes that Woody Allen is not only innocent of what he's accused, but is being given the gift that America gives its greatest directors, Charlie Chaplin, Orson Welles, and Woody Allen, which is to totally turn on them in their later years, only to have that, be the, sort of like the crowning achievement of an artist, of an American film artist, is to have America decide that it hates them.
Turn on them.
For erroneous reasons. But I do think that there's a lot to learn from engaging that story, and that song in particular led to people quitting the record. There was a lot of people who were very afraid of me putting that song in the record. People who asked to have their names off it. People who were very saying, I'm just worried about you, Andras. Why are you going to do this? And it's because I make records to try and change the world, and that I feel like that is a conversation that needs to be changed. I feel like we.
What do you think about like Manhattan, the movie Manhattan, where he's dating a 17-year-old?
I think that's a movie about a dynamic that was very prevalent in the 1970s.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I think a lot of Woody Allen's movies are about weaker or arrogant or very flawed men and and then looking at the impact that flawed men have on the women in their lives. One of the things that I think is very troubling about the way that the Woody Allen story has been told is that somehow his films are full of sexism, when during the 70s and the 80s, if you look at how many roles he wrote for great actresses who were too old to be cast in movies by more sexist directors, and just one after another, great, deep, intelligent,
I
heartfelt
love
roles
Woody
for
Allen
mature
movies.
actresses.
I gotta tell you, I love his work. It's some of my favorite work. It's some of my favorite work to even play, do the scenes from it, because it's. I've done in my acting studio. I've done, I don't know, probably 10 scenes from from those movies, and every time I just have the best time because it's so well written, and even though you feel like some of the stuff is improvised, when you do it word for word, it is just so rich. And the idea of relationships between different people and all of our neuroses and things come out in these films, and all of our frustrations. So I do find it to be beautiful. And there's a really interesting, I guess there's an episode on your podcast by a woman who wrote a book on John Farrow. I was listening to that briefly. So for people who want to check out that discussion.
The story, it's a very, I encourage people to listen to that podcast and to check out her book and explore that director. Now he sounds like the kind of he actually sounds like the person who Mia accuses Woody of being, which again is natural trauma creates projection and all of that. I don't like to villainize anyone. I do like to relate to the truth and not accept the truth from a liar, even if they have good reasons to believe their own lie. But he's an incredible director and full of dark, strange insights that are valuable. And I think understanding him can help you understand Mia Farrow, which then helps you understand the Farrow Allen case. One thing I would love to do like a whole podcast with you, just talking about the different aspects of how I think the campaign against Woody Allen is so much more damaging, even if he was guilty of what he's accused, which I do not believe he is, and I think the evidence shows that. It still wouldn't be as negative to society as a whole as the campaign, well, like for one, to disenfranchise Sunyi Previn and treat her as the property of an adopted mother who she claims was, physically and psychologically abusive to not just Sunyi, but all of her siblings who were not biological white children of Mia. And I think that's just on its face, just that one thing. Why would people refuse to listen to Sunyi Previn and instead use her to beat up on one of the most prominent and important Jewish artists of the 20th century? It's so patently racist and sexist on its face that people who claim to be opposing these negatives would just use this woman in that way. That's just one aspect, but it's like if you're willing to allow yourself that one aspect, then you have lost the moral high ground which you claim to have.
I think that I think a large point of this is like what you say, recognize, de-escalate, decode, is to really like dig deep into things before you take these, really hard stances on stuff. And also consider the point of view a lot of times of the material that you're getting and think for yourself. I think that the greatest disservice to our society is that people are not critical thinkers as much anymore. And I think that has to do with the education system and how they defunded a lot of the educational system purposefully so that people wouldn't be able to critically think. Or maybe they wouldn't be introduced to the idea. And then they're easily programmed. All right, let's dance it out. I've got.
Thank you very much. Thank you for giving me a few extra minutes to talk
No,
about
I
this record.
appreciate it, and
Obviously,
that's
this
one
is
of
what I'm the most passionate about.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. And one of the things about this, about having, self-produced media that's on the internet, is you can go longer if you want. The producers are not going to stop us. We don't have the commercials or whatever. So it's a good. I'm glad that you pushed me a little bit. I appreciate it. So we're going to dance to, at the end of the show, we do this. We play a song. I'm going to play your song. And we, dance around a little bit, say goodbye. It's called the dance break. Thanks so much for being on the show, Andras. It's been a major pleasure having you on the show, and really nice to connect with you. And hopefully people will go check out this new record. And then for all of the information about Andras, you can go to previouslyyours.com and check out like where he's going to be appearing and what kind of shows are happening. Jose Salas says, this is beautiful, controversial, and necessary conversation. Thanks, Jose. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jose.
All right, here we go. Record store.
Still got a record store. You don't see many of them around no more. I used to be on the radio, yeah, synchronicity. Yeah, baby, you and me. Every Tuesday night from 6 to 8, we would chaotically congregate. Yeah, but the boring haters couldn't wait. Yeah, synchronicity, baby. Yeah, thinking you and me, baby. Gotta recognize, de-escalate, and decode.
There it is.
What's that you ask? Is my town still a community?
Who's that guy?
Well, maybe hypothetically. I used to be on the radio. De-escalate and decode this situation. Otherwise, might as well kiss goodbye to our radio station. Recognize, de-escalate, and decode this situation. I'm talking about the truth and the reconciliation. Mandela style. My town has still got a record store. My town has still got a record store. My town has still got a record store. Synchronicity, baby. Yeah, thinking you and me. My town has still got a record store. My town has still got a record store. My town has still got a record store. Still got a record store. Still got a record store. Still got a record store.
All right, thanks, Andras. See you soon.
Thank you, Joel.
All right.